the one movie that I've been dying to talk to Gavin about on air for a while to get his first reaction. Our whole friendship, it's been Gavin showing me movies that I haven't seen before. And I love it because whenever I want a movie to watch, I'll just be like, Gavin, what's like a good, like, existential horror film? Or like, what's a fucking good, like, oh, I'm trying to get into surrealism, but I get bored easily. Like, what should I watch? Oh, I know your sensibilities. Like, you should check this movie out. But for the longest time, I've been like, bro, we should really watch Scarface, the 1981 masterpiece by Brian De Palma. And we finally did. Gavin, what was your reaction?
I fucking hated it. The worst piece of shit, the most overrated fucking piece of crap. I pretended to like it, but I can't believe that you think that's high quality art. You fucking piece of... No, I'm just kidding. Obviously, I loved Scarface. It is genuinely embarrassing that I hadn't seen it because I've seen a lot of fucking movies. I love Brian De Palma. And even in one of my very favorite movies, Spring Breakers, there's multiple references to Scarface. James Franco's characters, like we got Scarface on repeat. That's another great, Florida movie, kind of South Florida vibes. And I love those South Florida vibes in movies. So again, a lot of reasons why Scarface has been on my list for a long time. Again, I'm a huge fan of Brian De Palma. But I think the only reason why it did take me so long to watch it is simply because of the runtime, 2 hours and 45 minutes. It's a long movie, and much like a lot of the classics that I've put off watching, I think it's just because it's a longer movie. It's harder to find the time to properly enjoy a 3-hour film. Not that that's a good excuse, but that is my excuse. That's why it took me so long to watch it. But we did. We sat down the other night, put it on, watched it all in one setting. And it absolutely lived up to the hype. In fact, it lived up to the hype so much, and it's just such a 10 out of 10 masterpiece that I almost don't even really know what to add to the conversation. That's the tough thing when you're talking about reviewing a classic movie like The Godfather or Casablanca. It's like I can just say a bunch of things that everyone has already said about why this movie's awesome. I can sit down here and tell you guys why chocolate chip cookies are great and why they they pair really well with milk. It's like, that's not exactly breaking news. Everyone fucking knows that shit. So it is a tough movie to review for that reason, because it's like, yeah, everything that I could say about this film has already been said. It's already been well documented why this is a masterpiece, but I am happy to report that, yeah, those people weren't lying. It is a masterpiece. It is one of the best gangster movies I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think that there's so much praise about it, right? The immersive nature of it, the fact that it was a remake, but it completely reinvented itself. And I think that's an interesting tidbit that a lot of people might not know about this film, is that it was originally a film that came out in the 1930s, and it was about the Italian mafia and how they had taken over the bootlegging business in America. And it actually began in a very 1930s movie kind of a way, with an open plea to the government. It was an open plea to the Hoover administration to please do something about the rampant crime that has been popping up throughout the country. Because of why? Because of prohibition. And I don't think people in America really grapple with or understand the fact that when we imposed prohibition in America, we saw a cartel problem in this country that is very akin to what people see in Mexico. It was mildly less militarized. I guess you could say significantly less militarized, because it was pre-World War II, when the caliber of weaponry just exploded in the global marketplace. But it was a lot of guns, it was a lot of killing, it was a lot of murder, and it was a lot of gang control. And that was what the original Scarface was about. And it does a great job of exploring themes that you would expect from The Godfather, that you would expect from Once Upon a Time in America, that you would expect from these classic films that are about the Italian mafia, La Cosa Nostra. And what I loved about Brian De Palma is that he was like, I don't want to cover any of that. I want to talk about what's happening in America right now, cocaine. I want to reimagine this rise and fall of a mafioso and have him not be an Italian guy, a Sicilian dude fresh off of Ellis Island who rises to power and control over New York. I want it to be set in Miami with all that entails, all the glitz, all the glam, all the parties, all the drugs, and just incredible over the top flamboyance and debauchery of all of it, and the way that he's able to make a film that was both contemporary and a period piece that is so immersive, so tight, even though it's a 2 hour and 45-minute runtime. I just think it's fantastic. And all of it is anchored by Brian De Palma's own personal Napoleon, Al Pacino, who, as you pointed out when we were watching it together, is established as the smallest man in almost every single fucking shot in this movie. But he has balls of steel. And it just really, to me, is another visual element of the storytelling of the immigrant story in America, rising from being, somebody who's overlooked and cast aside to being somebody that demands the attention of everyone in the room.
Yeah, and this film itself, I think, very much so demands your attention in every single frame. Obviously, it's a movie about cocaine, but you really could just call this Cocaine the movie. Like, this movie is the essence of cocaine in every sense, from the set pieces. There's that term cocaine architecture, which describes a lot of the super, like, flamboyant, over the top architectural patterns from the 1980s when coke got really big. And this whole movie is just drenched in those kind of designs and set pieces, specifically as the film goes on and Tony Montana's life gets more and more lavish. The architecture around him really reflects that. The rooms get bigger, more insane, more colorful, and basically just every single set piece in this film, you could just pause it and you just want to exist there for a little bit, hang out there. I love just watching this movie and kind of dwelling in each of the environments and locations. And it's not just the architecture and the production design which reflects that cocaine sensibility. It's also this film's like approach to character development, which is something I really appreciate about this, because while you compare it to The Godfather, and obviously there are some comparisons to be made, that film also stars Al Pacino, and you also get to see him take this journey, this real, character journey from kind of lightness to darkness. In this film, I don't think there's really any of the subtlety that exists in, like, The Godfather. And that sounds like an insult. It sounds like a criticism of Scarface, but it's actually a compliment. And I think that as much as I love The Godfather, I'm actually really glad that this film takes a different approach than that film and that a lot of other, gangster movies in this genre take, which is that it's basically like a live action fucking cartoon. Like, and again, I don't say that as an insult, but this film is so over the top. Al Pacino is, hamming it up, chewing the scenery so fucking much by the end of this film. You almost do start to question, like, am I supposed to be taking this seriously? Like, am I supposed to actually be emotionally invested in this character? Because again, it does get so over the top, but in a way that I think works due to the nature of the kind of cocaine aesthetic and the subtext of, that drug and what it does to your life. In some ways, you could view that as a metaphor for capitalism, which I think is pretty interesting, and addiction in general. But again, I actually appreciate that this film, because some people criticized it when it came out. They're like, this is over the top, it's stupid. Like, Al Pacino's just like, completely overacting, towards the end when you're supposed to be taking it seriously. He's sillier than ever. And there are points in the movie when you're supposed to take it seriously that I was laughing. But again, not in a bad way, in a way that you just have to admire the over the topness of it all. The fact that Al Pacino is committing to the bit in such a physical way, not just an emotional way. It's not just all behind his eyes like in The Godfather. No, he's up and fucking jumping around and screaming and taking bullets and shooting people, and like, it is literally cocaine, the movie. And I love that creative decision a lot. Obviously, Brian De Palma is not a filmmaker known for his restraint, but I don't think he's ever been as unrestrained as he was making Scarface.
Completely agree. And I think that is what makes this film an achievement in its own right, is that so many guys after The Godfather came out, they wanted to do their version of The Godfather, right? And Brian De Palma doesn't do that at all. He makes the anti-Godfather, right? Whereas this is the film from the North, we're watching the Miami, the Southern version of it, the remix, right? And the Al Pacino performance, I think, is legendary. Obviously, when you compare it to The Godfather, one of his greatest performances in his career, it sounds hyperbolic, but I completely agree that it matches the level of just greatness. It's weird to, and almost like low hanging fruit to call Al Pacino a great actor, but he fucking is, man. And in the circumstance, what he was asked to do with this role is really, really challenging. And we talked about it immediately after it was over. There's only a few actors that would ever be willing and secure enough in their craft and in their role and vision to go the distance that Al Pacino goes in it. And I think it would have completely fallen apart with a lesser actor. I absolutely love Michelle Pfeiffer as the romantic interest in this. I love the scene where he's dancing and he's a shitty dancer and he's looking up at this woman that's a foot taller than him, it feels like, and he's chewing on his cigar and he's like spitting game to her, and he's like, now you're talking to me, baby, that I like. And he's just so charismatic and so full of life. And then the evolution that he has as he actually acquires what he believed he needed and what he had always desired. And I could just sing praise of this movie. I think you brought it up after we were done watching it. What's his name? Robert Loggia, the guy that puts him on game in the movie. Fantastic actor. His counterpart, the homie that he has from Cuba that he comes across with. It's just so perfectly done. And it really, really does make you nostalgic for a time you never existed, which is 1981 or 1979.
I'm sure some people in our chat remember.
True,
1980. Yeah. Not that long ago, but
I just meant the Miami scene. If you were a member of the cocaine industry and the right. Hot and fast Miami times, you'll still wish you were, and you'll still kind of feel like you had been at one point.
Yeah, 100%. No, it really is the best like 80s movie ever, honestly, in some ways. Just and even though I guess it takes place in the late 70s, it feels like it fucking takes place right in smack dab in the middle of the 80s. It really does capture the excesses of that decade in just an immaculate way. So yeah, real masterpiece. It lived up to the hype. There's not much more I can say about it than other than I don't know why I didn't watch that sooner. Everyone was right, and I put it off for way too long. Definitely one of my favorite De Palma movies, and I've always been a De Palma fan. So again, it's crazy that I slept on this one for so long.
Full 5 stars from me. Perfect film.
100%, 5 stars.
Anyway, glad we finally got that in the can, everybody. That's Gavin's first time reaction to Al Pacino and Scarface. So SEO right there.
I'll do one of these faces for the thumbnail.